There is a farmer in Zambia named Shanda. He has worked his family land for decades, teaching his children to care for the soil as his parents taught him. One day, a foreign company arrives and purchases a massive portion of his village's farmland. They promise modern irrigation, they promise jobs, and they promise integration into global markets. But when Shanda wakes up the next season, he finds he owns only a fraction of the land he once cultivated. Crops that once fed his family, that fed his neighbors, are now destined only for foreign markets. It is for these reasons that we still strongly propose the motion that African countries must impose strict limits on foreign ownership of agricultural land to safeguard livelihoods, food security, and sovereignty. In this speech, I'm going to dilute the debate down into three main key clash points. The first key clash in this debate is food security versus export profits. The opposition frames foreign ownership as a path to modernization. They frame it as increased productivity and access to international markets. They say that allowing foreign companies to own land automatically improves local food supply. However, massive, overwhelming amounts of evidence prove the exact opposite. Foreign investors lease this land to export-oriented crops: sugarcane, palm oil, soybeans, and rice for foreign markets, rather than staple foods in the community like maize, millet, and cassava that are used by local communities for their daily meals. In Madagascar, large foreign plantations lease soils to grow sugar and vanilla, while local communities are worrying about the rising costs of maize. In Mozambique, foreign companies cultivate rice for export while local rice cultivation cannot meet the local needs, leaving families vulnerable to hunger. This is a pattern that people see in nations such as Ethiopia, Kenya, and Tanzania, where foreign-owned farms are profit-oriented, not nation-feeding. The opposition would argue that exposure to international markets is good, but reliance on export-oriented agriculture exposes countries to international price volatility. When external demand declines or supply chains are broken, the local communities are affected first. This normally results in food shortages. It results in malnutrition and even famine. Foreign ownership caps are necessary to ensure that farmland is serving the interests of those who reside on it, ensuring that food, supplies, and local consumption are the top priority over foreign money gain. Food is not something to be exchanged out of in return for human existence. The second most significant conflict is between displacement and development. The opposition presents foreign ownership as a generator of jobs, as technology transfer, and the development of infrastructure. Foreign investment has been said to bring individuals out of poverty and provide up-to-date farming practices that smallholder farms otherwise wouldn't have access to. The reality of the world, however, is ultimately less favorable. Across Sudan, Ethiopia, and Zambia, foreign land purchases have dispossessed hundreds of thousands of smallholder farmers from their lands, often without compensation or option. Families that have tilled a piece of land for decades are reduced to temporary laborers on land that they once owned, or are forced into cities where they struggle to find real work. Employment provided by foreign farms is often low wage, temporary, and more often than not, exploitative. In Ethiopia's Gambela province, commercial farms owned by foreigners have leased huge amounts of cultivatable land, evicting individuals off the land into short-term, low-paid work. In Madagascar, peasants have been pushed into non-formal labor markets, losing land along with security. Additionally, revenue gained on foreign-owned farms rarely finds its way back to the local economy. Income is exported, taxes are evaded through legal corporate frameworks, and country infrastructure remains underdeveloped. It is not against foreign investment, but against uncontrolled ownership that puts people out, that takes resources out of the region, and undermines rural livelihoods. Control over foreign ownership guarantees that investment happens in ways that really benefits communities, holds jobs locally, and allows governments to focus on the development that is more inclusive rather than working for the interest of a foreign business. The third key clash point is in regards to sovereignty and dependency. Restrictions are framed as against development or restrictive by the opposition. Where foreign land ownership is vital for economic development, access to technology, and globalization, the world looks good, but uncontrolled foreign ownership undermines that national sovereignty and undermines it at its very core. Land isn't an asset, it's a strategic asset. When huge chunks of land for agriculture are owned by foreign companies, governments in Africa have no control over what is being grown, how the land is being run, or how agricultural policy is being tied up within the national processes. In Zambia, for instance, foreign investors hold huge tracts of farmland, which limits government authority to make cropping, diversification, or food security policies stick. Foreign domination of farmland has influenced Senegalese and Kenyan policy, causing export crops over the needs of the domestic market. This creates a dependency trap. Rather than having an independent, autonomous agricultural system, countries actually end up relying on outside money, relying on loans to keep production going, placing governments and communities into the thrall of external forces and the whims of the world marketplace. Sovereignty isn't symbolic, but it's a necessity for nations to strategize, to prevent crises, and to protect their citizens. Foreign ownership limits regained control so that African states are able to form policies that improve their citizens' welfare and long-term viability while being open to controlled foreign partnerships advancing national interests. In short, this isn't an argument about economics or development. It's about survival. It's about livelihood. It's about the agency for millions of African citizens. The opposition raises that gains from foreign investments that are paid for by disregarding human costs like food insecurity, like displacement, like wealth extraction, and the erosion of national sovereignty. Our movement doesn't prevent investment and ensures that African countries control their land, that they empower their farmers, and serve the health of the people first. Consider Shonda from the beginning of my speech, working in the land he cultivated for centuries. Under limits, he provides for his family, improves his community, and allows his country to stand firm against hunger and economic instability. Without limits, he is displaced, dependent, and powerless. For the good of African people, their farmers, and their coming generations, draconian limitations on foreign ownership are not merely bad. Usually they are required. For those reasons, you vote proposition. Thank you.